Hello everyone, welcome to Talking Points with KPI episode 12. Now this episode is going to be a little different. It's not going to be your normal podcast. We will have interviews, but this one's going to be more about a story. It's a story about two kids that have been working at KPI for over 5 years. Their names are Aiden Keenan and Landon Stump. Now these two are the top rated pitchers in California in 2023 class right now, both right-handed. They grew up 1 mile from each other and have played on the same club teams. They go to the same high school and they train together here at KPI. Both are committed to major Pac-12 schools and both are projected to be high draft picks in the summer of 2023. Now this is just part one of the amazing story. Hello everyone and welcome to part one of the Aiden and Landon story. I'm here with their coach Eric Wagley. Hey Eric, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
So let's get right into this. I mean, this story is amazing. To first start off, I mean, it's unusual that you see two talents like that together. But first of all, talk about their early days of playing baseball. Like, where did you see their passion come from at a young age?
Well, known both of them for a very long time. Aiden's older brother Tyler was one of the original dub players, so even when Aiden was really young, we knew him, and he was a little teeny guy that talked a lot. And then Landon started taking pitching lessons from me when he was 10, and so their passions were evident at a young age. They were much different at a young age, but both their parents instilled a strong work ethic with them at a young age, got them training at a young age, and kind of got them in a strong system. And I think that's made a huge world of difference.
So you can see at a young age they were just willing to work. They were
Absolutely.
just willing to work hard. And so with every kid growing up, there's obviously some challenges. What were some challenges that they have faced?
I think for Aiden in particular, he was just small. He was and is a late bloomer. And so, as he's always been really skilled and had a ton of body control and been a good little player, but as the kids got into that 13 and 14-year-old age group, kids started going through puberty, and Aiden was very, very far away from that. And there started to create some distance physically between other players and Aiden. And Aiden got to the point on his 14-year-old team where he was kind of on the outside looking in of playing time. He was the guy that pitched a little bit on Saturday, threw him a few at-bats early in the tournament, that when things got serious, he got kind of pushed to the bench. Landon had some different challenges. He had Little Leaguer's elbow his 14-year-old year, so we made a very controversial decision to shut him down for his whole 14-year-old year. If I'm being flat out honest, we knew how talented he was at a very young age, and we decided to handle him very, very carefully, and we're seeing the results of that approach with him rather than trying to push him through that. And
so, just to go back, it's hard to not talk about the COVID year, right? It was a big thing for everybody in the world, but especially for athletes that missed that year. But running a business like you do, you're able to get the fortunate ability to get these kids to train. Talk about how those, hard times for everybody else may have helped those kids in a certain aspect.
I think it helped these two in particular quite a bit. One, they're both, even Landon, even though he was bigger as a kid, he's a little bit of a late bloomer as well. So they both needed to stop playing so much. And they were multi-sports athletes that year, the COVID year in high school. So they were coming off basketball season and going into baseball. Yeah, going into baseball. Landon played football too. So they got to just stop doing everything and just train. Now, it was challenging in different ways. We sent home weightlifting equipment with both of them so they could train during the serious shutdown of the spring. There was an inherent trust amongst their parents so that they did get to spend time with me during that shutdown, and we were able to do some targeted training with them just because they live so close, and there was some trust even though kind of the world was shut down. We were still able to interact a little bit.
And so obviously kids are able to learn a lot of things at a certain aspect in that time, but they're also able to teach some certain things. So I want to kind of flip the perspective of thinking, and how were they able to push you, whether that was coaching or even from the business aspect during that time?
They really COVID allowed us three to kind of spend a ton of time together and get close. And so they pushed me a lot. They challenged me a lot of different ways. I think they're so comfortable with me that they probably challenged me a little bit too much. And that's when the voice gets raised and things change a little bit. But, they were really able to establish themselves in their work ethic and kind of grow up a little bit during that time and understand that, hey, we're doing something special here, and we're going to push each other really hard. And then, my job is to hold them accountable to the system.
That's awesome. So obviously we're doing this story for a reason. It's a very special story. Did you see that at an early age? I mean, two best friends, and then obviously you see the talent-wise grow up from the same town, went to the same high school, both going to big schools. Like, could you just feel that the essence of these two kids just kind of grow?
I mean, yes and no. Like, Landon from a young age was very obvious that he was going to be a talented young man that had a chance to do what he's doing right now. Aiden was took a lot more creativity to see. You could see, some of the physical traits with his arm. He was just so small. Like he just it took a larger gap to kind of overcome to think that he would be who he is today. As they went into COVID, that's really where Aiden started to excel. He just got crazy in the weight room and he got after it. And then we saw going into that COVID summer where Landon got pushed to the Alpha team, the best team in the state, and Aiden was still playing for Dub. And he got a little bit better through that summer, and we pushed him to the Alpha Power team, and then we pushed him to the Alpha Prime team, and then they started to kind of come together in this path, really at that point in time, and kind of make these huge strides. And it's fun to even see them throw next to each other in the winter when they're doing velocity training, because they'll just try to one-up each other with every throw. So
you'd say the relationship didn't start off genuine, but formed into something that is now genuine?
It's always been genuine. They've always been really good friends, and they've always been on these teams, but there was some separation there early in high school, where it's just Aiden just hadn't kind of gone through puberty and got the strength yet that he has now. And then they've, if I'm being really honest, Aiden kind of worked his butt off and closed that gap a little bit, and now they're on this, somewhat of a parallel path.
So, you kind of mentioned a little bit, about their competition and work ethic when they do get in here. But what is the best part about watching them train here? Like at KPI, a big name facility, and these two kids just come in here and work their tails off. What is that to you?
They set the standard. All these kids, they watch the videos and they look at the rankings and they see who's committed where. And Aiden and Landon are at the top of the pile with all of that, with all the different accomplishments they've had. But then if you're a kid training in here and you see that kids of those two status work as hard as they do and as consistent as they do, it raises the floor. Like everyone else comes up because they understand, like, hey, that's what it takes.
It's more than just being good. They really want to will. They want the will to win and want the will to be good. And who, in this situation, who are the people that they, I guess, and you would be most thankful for at this moment?
I talk about a lot is like the support system. That both these two kids have incredible families that have invested in them at a young age, and we see the fruition of that now. They got into a structured system at a young age. They started strength training at a young age. We prioritized their health at a young age. So now I'm thankful for their families that they've entrusted me. They basically just said, here, it's your job to kind of to take them through this baseball journey now. And we all work together and do it. So I'm grateful for their families. I'm grateful for them. I push them very hard. And it isn't always fun. And so, on my end, that's what I'm grateful for.
That's awesome. They've received all the things that you said well, and the families have been treating the KPI and you perfectly. So, before we get on to the last topic, actually, this is the last topic. I didn't mean to say that. The future. A lot of people can talk about it, but what does this hold for, like you said, the three of you? You started young, did Dub, moving to Alpha, Dub going now to Alpha with Aiden. What does the future hold for you?
I think for the boys, the future is very bright for them. They have a chance to get drafted high out of high school if they want. They both are obviously committed to great schools, and so if that's their route, that's going to be great. And then hopefully, we're talking about professional baseball and maybe in the major leagues. We're talking about two extremely talented young men that work extremely hard and have a great support system. So the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Eric, very much. This is part one, so we got more parts coming with the Aiden and Landon story. This is their coach, Eric Wagley. Part two will be coming up right after this, and it will be with their strength coach. And stay tuned for that. Welcome, everyone, to part two of the Aiden and Landon story. I'm here with the strength coach, Dan Kabulin. Dan, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming on. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to start off with question number one. So how have you seen Aiden and Landon grow, not only as human beings, but as athletes?
A ton. I think both of them started, I want to say it was either 7th or 8th grade. Contextually, it was a little bit different. At the time, it was two businesses. It was Dub Baseball and 93 Training. I had just gotten kind of dialed in and was just running a bunch of assessments. I think I came back for like a week and did like 20 or 30 or 40 assessments. And for Aidan, because I don't think I did an assessment on Landon when I first moved back, Aidan, the only reason I had the assessment was because of his brother. So his older brother was a sophomore at Monte Vista Christian. Their focus at the time was him, obviously getting him prepared to play college baseball, which he is doing. And Aidan was just kind of tagging along, just like that little brother. We still joke, I think, in the assessment, his parents were like, yelling at him because we're trying to be all serious, and Tyler's getting his assessment, and Aidan's like smacking him on his neck and on his calves and like, being a little brother, right? So I still ran him through an assessment, and pre-puberty, there's a lot of things that are the same. There are things that are slightly different. But I wouldn't say Aidan was an afterthought, but it wasn't the number one focus. He was a player as we started. I started training him. Was like the checks a lot of boxes as far as athleticism goes. Yeah. But I knew that he was going to be a late bloomer because his brother was also a late bloomer, being 2 years ahead of him, or 2 or 3 years ahead of him. Developmentally,
you got to see kind of Aiden's maturing process with his brother.
Correct, yeah, because everyone hits puberty at different times and it looks different. There are telltale signs, but compared to his group that he was playing with, that 14U team that he was on, he was going to be later than most of those kids. Where you had a handful of kids who were your early bloomers, right? They start presenting with there's the facial hair, armpit hair, all that stuff, right? So, like, really the number one focus for Aiden when he first started training was have fun. And majority of the work was that, like, being in the gym, enjoying the process of working out, and not necessarily looking at, it's going to improve this or improve that, because for the most part, the most important building blocks, testosterone, weren't there. And so we just worked on movement, arm care, him just getting used to the weight room so that when things did change, then we could really hit the ground running. Yeah. Landon's was a little bit different because I wouldn't say Landon was an early bloomer, but he was just ahead of Aiden. And he was throwing much harder than Aiden. His was really more so, I want to get in this 14U team that they were playing on was the better team. We knew that there was a lot of talent there. And then Landon was more of the protective mindset. He was throwing probably upper 70s as an 8th grader. We knew that he was going to be pretty talented. And so there was a lot of precautionary work that we went into and more depth, to the point where, like, I still have videos of doing their shoulder blade screens and making sure that they understand how your shoulder blade should work and the purpose and the correct. And so Landon's was much more so, how do we prepare and protect him as he goes through 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade, because we knew that there was a lot of projectability there.
So kind of to segue into that, into the next topic, what did you see? I mean, because you have these assessments, like you say, you kind of see the late blooming with the brother, but athleticism aspects, what did you see from these two young kids? Was there anything that really was, like, obviously you said Landon with his arm, but anything that stood out? Because you guys are a really big movement-based kind of business. You really understand, you want everybody to learn. So did anything stand out with those two kids specifically?
One that's really easy is joint hypermobility. I think it's going to be probably a prerequisite for most really talented athletes, but it can be your worst enemy when you're young. So if you think of like a puppet, an athlete who is really, really hypermobile or has a ton of joint laxity, it's going to take a lot of control, mostly brain-body connection, to then utilize that. And so it can be problematic for younger athletes because they're not mature enough. They don't have the strength, they don't have the movement capacity, all the things that come with getting older. And so again, Landon was a little ahead of Aiden as far as that component. I can control my body, I can do this elite movement, and I can get elite outcomes as far as throwing velocity. Yeah. Aiden wasn't quite there, but the component I knew for both of them, beyond that joint hypermobility, was they both played multiple sports. So they played basketball. I think Landon went into football. They were good athletes. And this is something, if you're just stuck in the weight room, you can't really see these things, and it's the value of having the relationship and the partnership with their coaches, with Eric. And so having that insight it was really, I think, important. Both of them had a ton of shoulder range of motion. I've posted multiple times on social media as far as Landon and Aiden, the amount of external rotation in their arm. So external rotation is when your arm lays back. They were both born with a ton of it for whatever reason. And so I think that general athleticism, and I think the final component, and we'll probably hit this again, they both, for the most part, didn't really look at coming to the gym as a chore. Like, training wasn't a chore, it wasn't hard, it was just kind of a part of my day, and I enjoyed coming here, and I think that component was really, really maybe one of those X factors that you can't necessarily quantify.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, I mean, we can talk about it right now. You mentioned in previous podcasts that this is not we're going to show success. We're going to show you how to work hard. We're going to show you how to get there, and the success will come. And you guys have preached that before, and it seems that Aiden and Landon have gotten that, and they understood that. But give a testament to, let's call it, work ethic. How do these kids at such a young age, did you see them, like you said, they didn't see it as a chore, but what could you see in the gym that just every day they would come in?
I think Landon and Aiden's were different. Landon's, because he was told at a young age, and he knew at a young age that I could be very good at sports, I think that positivity is very, very powerful. A lot of kids are told that they suck all the time, and you're not good enough, and you don't do this, you don't do that. And so finding that right balance, I think Landon was lucky to have the right people around him, coaches and family members who provided that feedback, what was correct for him. Yeah. And so I think that worked out really, really well for him. Whereas there's some kids you could tell them you're the greatest player in the world, and it's the worst thing you could do for them because they start believing that, and then they get lazy, right? Aiden was the opposite. I call it the little sibling effect. He always had an older brother that I'm trying to keep up with. I need to be as good as him. I want to be better than him. And I think that is something, you are born into. You don't necessarily have a choice. But I think that then provided the opportunity to Aiden knowing that I have to work extra hard. I have to put in extra work. And then some kids that will be taken as, well, I'm not even going to try. Why even? Those kids are older, or that guy's got this, or that guy. No,
he never said that. He always went for it.
Correct. Because I think that the closeness in age between him and his brother, there were times where he would get victories. Right. Sometimes I'd beat my brother in a race, or I'd cross him up when I'm playing basketball, or I'd have victories over the person that I perceive as being I want to get better at. And I think that ultimately is going to be a very, very valuable tool for him.
Absolutely. So we're going to end here at kind of a loaded question. Obviously you say these things and you hope they come true, but what's the future of these two kids?
Man, I joke with parents that when we sit down for assessment, they'll ask me that very question, and I go, if we were able to do that, we'd charge a lot more money. Yep. I think, I personally have worked with them for the last 4 years straight. I think a lot of pieces are in place for them to be successful for a very, very long time. There are factors we don't have control over. I think a very tangible example of this is COVID was probably the best thing to happen for their age because it gave them more time. It gave Aiden the time to develop and not have the pressure of playing for a year straight. So then puberty-wise, I can catch up to all those guys. Yeah. It probably took a workload component off of Landon, which would, guys who typically are better pitchers get used a little bit more. And so that him having that time off, I think, is good. But I think, as long as they continue to do what they know they need to do to be successful, and they keep their minds and their focus on the things that we know are going to give them the opportunity for success. Absolutely. We already have a long time amount of evidence that they're going to be pretty successful and for a very long time. So
that's awesome. Thank you very much, Dan, for talking. This has been part 2 with the strength coach. We had the coach in part 1. If you want to go back and watch that, please do. Part 3 will be with Aiden and Landon. So make sure to stay tuned, and there will be a lot more content coming out. So please be on the lookout. Hello and welcome to the next segment, the player intro. I am here with Aiden Keenan. He is a player on the story. He is not Landon Stump. Landon Stump will be in the next segment, and then we will get them together with Eric, and we'll have a whole conversation. But we're going to meet Aiden today. Aiden Keenan. He's a top pitcher, 2023 class. I'll let him introduce himself a little bit.
I'm Aiden Keenan. I've been playing baseball for about 10 12 years. I kind of just started only pitching about a year ago, and it's kind of paid off just focusing on pitching.
So, I mean, you're a high-level pitcher now, right? But
Yeah.
let's talk about the early days. Like, how was it becoming that high-level pitcher? Like, was it always easy at first, or did you kind of have to work for what you got?
I definitely had to work for it. When I was like 8, 9, 10, I was kind of good. But then 12, 13, 14, 15.
Well, what's like kind of good? Like, what would you mean like kind of?
I was throwing it pretty hard at that age.
For that age group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 12, 13, 14, 15, everyone started hitting puberty, and I didn't hit it until later. And everyone was just passing me, and I was like, I barely played. I didn't get much playing time. I would always pitch on like Saturdays when it didn't matter. And then, like late 15, early 16, I hit a Grossberg, big Grossberg, and it like helped out a lot. I was in the weight room a lot during COVID. It's like just helped a lot.
Yeah.
Having that Grossberg.
During those times, what would you say your biggest challenge was to get on the field?
It's kind of a hard question.
I mean, it could be a lot of things, right? I mean, it could be the fact that you're only pitching on Saturdays. It could have been the fact that you didn't throw hard enough. There's a lot of stuff, that on the outside looking in. But what does Aiden Keenan think when he was that age? What did you think was stopping you from being that next level?
I thought I was just smaller than everyone, and I didn't think that I really had what it took to play at the next level.
Yeah.
Even though I just had to work for it. I was kind of like focused on like school and other sports and stuff, but I never really thought I'd be playing in college or being a high level athlete at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and it's a very big testament to the hard work you've put in. So let's talk about it a little bit, right? I mean, COVID happened. A lot of people are like, "Oh, COVID's like a really bad thing." Like a lot, like obviously it is. I'm not taking away from how bad COVID was, but it had helped you in a lot of different ways because you were able to get into a facility like KPI and make things happen. So kind of talk about that a little bit. Like obviously COVID hits, baseball season ends. Like where's your head at? Like after that?
COVID was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me because it just gave me all the time in the world to just train, and I stopped hitting and stuff. I just focused on just pitching, and that was the best choice I ever made.
Yeah, and that was just the best choice you ever made because it like singulared your focus. It was
Exactly.
you're just able to get singular focus on pitching.
Yeah.
And how about the weight room? I mean the weight room you said was huge for you earlier. What would that look like?
For sure.
A lot of legs, a lot of.
I did all of it, just legs, upper body, abs. I'd sometimes work out 2 times a day if I had to, and just helped me put on weight and stuff, made me stronger, bigger. I
Yeah.
started noticing like huge improvements in my velo and strength once COVID hit. Pretty good.
Yeah, it's just you feel excelled when that happens.
Exactly.
So, I mean, obviously this is a story about not only just you but also Landon, and you two now go to the same high school, top 2 pitchers in your class and right-handers in California. Talk about that relationship a little bit. I mean, I understand that you guys weren't best friends growing up, you know what I mean? But you guys have grown that relationship of more of, I want to be better than you and you want to be better than me, kind of competition-wise.
100%.
So how has that kind of grown your friendship?
We always strive to be better than each other.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, like eating, pitching, school.
Yeah, like who's getting more calories this
Exactly.
week and stuff like that, yeah.
We compete in absolutely everything, and it definitely makes us better as a player and a person.
Well, I mean, give us some examples. I mean, you say you compete in everything, right? But, like, you two going to the same high school has to be kind of tough on other people going to that high school as pitchers, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
what keeps you two focused during those high school practices or even summer practices where you're going out with high-level athletes? What keeps you two focused and that keeps that friendship going?
We know like we're seen as leaders, so we try and set the best example for everyone else. So then we kind of just, since we both want to be better than each other, we try and be as like disciplined as we can.
Yeah, with everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, coming here with Landon, what is the best part about I shouldn't say the best part about KPI because all of it's pretty great.
Yeah.
What is the best experience you were having at KPI? I mean, it's just the work ethic in general. Is it the weights, the pitching, or is it just the whole aspect of the camaraderie? Or just kind of go into it.
I'd say the coaches and support everyone has. All the coaches are focused on every player.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has their own written program, and they all, it's all personalized. All the coaches just love all the athletes, take great care of them, make sure they're always healthy.
Yeah, would you say that really helps you excel as an athlete, coming into a facility like this and already having your stuff ready to go?
Yes, because some facilities were just like, here's your stuff, go work out. Here's a written program that everyone's going to do.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be personalized. It won't help this person individually. And that's exactly what this place does. They help everyone individually.
Yeah, and so you're a rare case, and so is Landon. And I'm going to talk to both of you a little bit about it, but you guys have been here since the start.
Yeah.
You guys were here when KPI first opened in their old location, and now you're here in the new spot with all the technology. So kind of walk us through that a little bit. You don't have to go detail to detail, but kind of explain that grow up, I guess you could say, of KPI.
Well, we first started out as like ID3, and we were kind of just like small. Nothing. It wasn't really personalized. It wasn't really individualized. Everyone kind of did the same workout. It was just kind of in the early stages of like a building program. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of in its early stages. I guess.
Just kind of a basic training facility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of just what everyone else was.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we moved here, got all this new technology, the force plates, Rapsodo, hit tracks, that's when we really took off.
Yeah. So, I mean, you already said kind of the people you're most grateful for here, which is the coaches, because you say they specialize the aspect of coaching to a certain kid. Like they make the plans for them every week. They give you guys certain things to do according to your throwing programs. It's very specialized according to you. But outside of that, who are you most grateful for? Like how do you go about your life every day? You're like, you know what, I could say I'm grateful for that person.
I'd say my parents and probably Landon, because if I didn't have Landon, I wouldn't have someone to push me as hard as I work, because I just strive to be better than him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's your thing. You want to get better, so you strive every day to get better, and that's grateful enough for those people.
Exactly.
So I'm going to ask you one last question. It's kind of a loaded question.
Okay.
What does the future hold for Aiden Keenan? Like I said, kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
But I want you to be honest with yourself. What does the future hold for Aiden Keenan? Like when you hear that, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I'm hoping to be a freshman All-American in college and hopefully get drafted out of high school. I don't know if I want to exactly go to the draft out of high school because I want to get a degree and stuff.
Yeah.
But after college, I hope to get drafted in the first round. A little nice signing bonus.
Hell yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, man, I mean, as you guys can see, we have a lot of hard workers here at KPI. Aiden Keenan, one of the best. Next segment, we will have Landon Stump in here, sitting in here and talking about the same type of questions. And then after that, we're going to get a group interview with Eric, Landon, and Aidan. So stay tuned for that. There will be more to come on this episode of Aiden Keenan and Landon Stump, the story. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the player intros. Last time we had Aiden Keenan, now we have Landon Stump. Now, like I said, this is the other part to the top right-handed pitchers in 2023. Aiden was the first one, now we have Landon. Landon, thanks for coming on. Nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I had AK introduce himself, like I said earlier before we started, but I don't think we need to do that here unless you really want to introduce yourself. I feel like these questions are going to get down to it.
Yeah.
So let's start off right to it and talk about the early days of baseball. I mean, before kind of high school and before kind of all the publicity came. What did that look like? What did little Landon? What was that like playing baseball?
But he was actually a hitter.
He's a hitter.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was a shortstop.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to say it was more fun, but I definitely miss being a hitter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just that aspect and the competing with the pitcher in a different way.
Yeah.
But since you said that, I mean, what was kind of, when did you start pitching, like, for real?
Like 13 years old. I was still a two-way, but
Mhm.
that's when I started taking pitching more serious.
Like, that was when people were telling you, like, this could actually
Yeah.
be, like,
That's when I started working on pitching.
I got you. So I mean, you say at a young age you were more of a shortstop and a hitter, and then you turned into a pitcher at, like, 13, you said. So what were some struggles when you were younger, either a hitter or a pitcher, just in general in baseball? Like, what were some struggles for you that you had to deal with?
Like confidence stuff.
Yeah.
Like when I'd be doing bad, then my confidence would go down and I'd start playing worse. But then when I was doing good, my confidence was super high. It was like I'd go on a hot streak and I'd just keep doing good.
Yeah. And so now, I mean, obviously now I can kind of tell watching you play, you kind of keep that even keel most of the time, all the time, unless things start to get ramped up, and then you get a little energy just to get the boys behind you. But you've done a really good job with that. And so talk about, I was mentioning with AK, COVID is bad. Obviously, COVID was horrible, but it has helped a lot of people. And AK mentioned that it helped him, and I was wondering, did this COVID season help you at all?
Yeah, because normally at school I wouldn't be able to work out 5 times a week and stuff, and I was like in the gym every day, and I had a lot of extra time to really work on like not just working out but actual pitching stuff too.
Mechanics, the mental side of it, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that was probably the biggest benefit to your uprise at the moment? Was that COVID season?
Yeah, I feel like COVID really helped. I feel like if COVID didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
And so now let's get into your and Aiden's relationship a little bit. I mean, like, I kind of figured out with talking to Aiden, you guys kind of started out separate. You guys didn't grow up best friends. So it came up a little bit separately, and then the baseball aspect going up to high school, tournaments even before high school, and that relationship starting to bloom. Talk about that a little bit. How did that relationship come to be?
Yeah, we weren't we played on the same team when we were younger, but then he came to Dub actually. We didn't really like acquaintances, and we're cool with each other. But then around like high school, and then probably started COVID, because then we both went here, and we're just training every day, and then it's like at a point we're just pushing each other to get better, and it's like fun. Cause it's like you're competing, but you're also getting better with your friend, you know.
Exactly, and that's what he said. The same thing too. He's like, I loved it because it's just somebody pushing me to be better every day, and it's like you two have that great dynamic where you guys weren't friends at first, like you said, you were acquaintances or whatever. You guys had chopped it up at tournaments, however that may be, but now you're friends, pushing each other to be better in high school and even at the next college level. So, I mean, how special is that to you guys? I mean, you're going through this process together, both of you from the same neighborhood, from a small town, going to the same high school, to make it, or not yet, but to get a chance to make it to these big college levels. Like, how is that for you guys?
It's pretty crazy. It's like, two, I don't want to say D1 yet, but two D1 committed pitchers from the same small area at our little public school. And it's pretty cool because I don't think it's something that our schools experience, like, I don't know, ever.
Yeah.
Maybe. But it's pretty cool because it doesn't come around often, so it's.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are kind of an anomaly. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of different to see a lot of people kind of look up to you guys in that way. So let's go to a little bit of the training side. I mean, you guys work at KPI. You guys have worked at KPI for a long time before it was even called KPI. We'll go into that in a little bit. But what, for you, is the best part about training at KPI?
Probably the amount of time I can come in and the amount I can get done.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that, whenever you need something, like help, or say something doesn't feel right, then you can just go to a coach and they'll just help you get it right.
And you're saying feel right within body,
Yeah,
or just make anything really?
Yeah, if something feels a little off, you can just go to a coach and find out what it is, and then you can just find a way to recover.
Absolutely. So, I mean, KPI, all these people helping you, you got yourself doing all this work. Being grateful is something that a lot of people express towards people. I would like to know, I asked AK the same thing, who are you most grateful for? That can be inside baseball or outside baseball. It doesn't really matter. Just someone, when I say grateful, when you're grateful for that person, who's the person that comes to mind? Or people, it could be multiple people.
My parents, definitely, probably the first ones we got mentioned. They helped me get through a lot, and when I'm stressing about stuff, they can just help me get through it. My dad, he also pushes me. He's the one who got me into baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, for anything I need, I can go to her.
Yeah.
And also Wagley. Wagley does a lot for me and Aidan, so
Yeah.
definitely thankful for Wagley.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you one last little question, and I asked AK the same thing. what does the future hold for Landon Stump? I know, like I said, it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
But what does the future hold for Landon Stump?
You gotta stay tuned.
Hey, there you go. Hey, you heard it. That was a good answer from Landon. We will be in the next segment with all three of them. That is Landon, Aiden, and Eric. So please stay tuned. I know I keep saying it a lot, and there's a lot of breaks throughout this whole story, but you've been interested all the way through. So just stay till this last little part. We got the best 3 interviews coming, and then that'll be it. So thank you much for watching this far. This has been Landon. You've seen Aiden. So get everybody else out and stay tuned. Welcome everybody to the final segment. This is the segment where we get to meet all 3 at the same time and talk about their journey together. Like I said before, this is a story about Aiden Keenan and Landon Stump, 2 top right-handed pitchers in class of 2023. So let's get it going. Nice to have you guys all here. Thanks for coming. So Eric, we'll start with you. The 3, what makes this process work with these 3? I can already tell they're kind of laughing and giggling, but what makes it work with you 3? I mean, you guys just seem to be tight-knit.
There's obviously there's a built-up layer of trust, right? We've been together a long time. They've both been in the program since they were young, giving pitching lessons and stuff like that. So I think that's the foundation that's been laid. But then I think it's a collective desire to like push them to their limits and them accepting that. That really kind of makes this work. So it's morning workouts, it's smoothies, it's throwing, it's checking in after their starts if I'm not there. So it's a really, really built out system, built on that strong foundation of trust that I think makes us go.
Yeah, I mean, same thing back to you guys. I mean, obviously he can say all these things, but in return, do you guys believe that is true? Like, do you guys really think that this stuff is helping you?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of all built on trust.
Yeah. And I think that I can see that, like I said before, I can see that 100%. All 3 of you guys trust each other. You'll most likely see what these 2 talked about in their podcast. It's a lot of trust between you 3, sorry. But you can tell that you kind of brought that program and the business and you guys being able to train with these guys and brought that along. So how have, it's kind of hard to say, but how have these 2 responded with the increased expectations that they get when they grow? How have you seen that work?
They've definitely responded, and it's something we always talk about. Like, when they accomplish something, when they committed, when they got named area codes, like there's some happiness. There's a talk about what a great accomplishment is, and then the next thing is, all right, now we work harder. So that's our mindset. Is that no matter where they're going or what they're doing, their job is to work harder than they did the day before. And so each year they play this game that's going to get more and more difficult. So they're going to have to work harder and harder.
Yeah, I bet you guys feel that too. I mean, it's like people always say the game gets a little faster. From your guys' perspective, has that been true?
Yeah, and the competition gets harder, so you gotta get better too.
Yeah, you gotta want to win more and you gotta want to be better than the other person. So this question's for you 2 specifically. Having a coach that does what he does, checks in, gets you smoothies, makes sure you guys are all right. Has that always been, and the accountability side has always been there from him? I'm sorry, I'm kind of messing up my question here, but you have a teammate and you have a coach that are always going to be accountable for you. What's the worst part in that, and what is the best part in having that?
You go first.
Yeah, you go first.
The best part is we'll always have someone who will have our back. They'll always be looking out for us and do what's best for us, whether it's they'll do what's best for us.
Yeah.
It's it's a great privilege. I'd say the worst part is they're it's not really a bad part about it. It's all benefits.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get yelled at.
Yeah, it's fine if we get yelled at.
You got to sometimes, right? Yeah.
Sometimes we need it.
Yeah.
The good part is there's always someone there, and when you're slacking, they'll hold you accountable. So you're always working. There's no days off.
Yeah, and even like you said, your friends are making sure that's happening too, not just your coaches.
Yeah, and the worst part is Wagley can't take a joke sometimes and then gets mad at us.
I was gonna say the seasonal smoothie this morning. So.
Yeah, you gotta get your smoothies. So I mean, just to continue, you can tell obviously there's banter and it's genuine. But for you and Landon, Aiden, you guys are both now ranked top pitchers in the state. But you guys both started from a small town neighborhood. What does that feel like now?
It's pretty awesome how we both like just made it to the top,
Mhm.
and we're both in the same city.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy when you think about it.
I thought you were gonna say got out the mud.
That'd have been a good little phrase to put there.
We're from the suburbs.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's cool. You don't see that like in small towns.
Yeah. So Eric, I wanted to ask you a little bit. I mean, seeing them go from what you started with and now to where they're at today, what has that been like?
I mean, that's wild. Just even beyond that, you know. I mean, I've lived in Warren Hill my whole life. The neighborhood we live in, I grew up in. Like, so, like, you know, this
You've
is
seen it evolve way longer. Than
yeah,
that.
exactly. And you know, there's never been a Pac-12 baseball player come out of Live Oak. There's been a lot of really good baseball players come out of Live Oak, but never been a Pac-12. And then you have two in the same class, training in the same place, coming from the same neighborhood. So, you know, for a lifelong Morgan Hill guy like me that still lives in that same neighborhood, it's incredible. Like to see that, you know, we have two kids that are, you know, from the mean streets of Paradise Valley, you know, rising up together and doing some really amazing things for not only their own individual careers in our facility, but for this town.
I mean, so to kind of piggyback off that, how do you guys feel when you hear stuff like that? I mean, because if there's been a lineage, right, of people at Live Oak, like there hasn't been bad baseball players that went to this school. It just so happens that there's never been a Pac-12 or D1 baseball player. So when you guys hear stuff like that, well, how does that make you feel? We'll go with you, Landon. No, we're gonna start with you now. Yeah,
Dang.
you're not getting away with this one.
It's kind of like, not overwhelming, but like I guess shocking because
Yeah,
it's like
it's a lot to hear.
it's like I guess first in like this area to do something. It's like I don't know. It's kind of cool, but it's also like whoa, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, okay, you laugh over there, but how do you feel about it?
I think we kind of underestimate like the talent that we have,
Mm-hmm.
and
You're talking about in your area?
well, like just me and Stump.
Oh, okay.
Scratch that.
That's what's
No,
the town,
yeah.
just I guess the situation you're in. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's like there's not really two kids from the same high school in a small town
Yeah.
that are both accomplishing like the same dream they have.
Yeah, and they're both pushing each other to do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often. And he's right. You're very right in that. And so, you guys being, like we've talked about, going from acquaintances now to being friends and pushing each other every day, let's just keep it at this level where you guys are now. What are the benefits of this relationship besides, you can obviously say we make each other work harder. But let's get a little deeper than that. What are the benefits of this friendship besides just that?
Like just a friend. Like even like non-baseball stuff. I know I can ask him for help. He'll help me with it.
Yeah.
There's like someone always there.
It's just like we build an actual friendship just from meeting each other through baseball, instead of just being like just teammates,
Yeah.
friends outside of baseball.
And I'll include you in this one. How have you seen their relationship grow in the past? I mean, within the past 2 years of them working within COVID, outside of baseball and pushing them, like I asked.
I think, you know, like I was thinking about this today because we were getting ready for this, and I was reading over the questions and stuff, and like I think it kind of goes back to that Utah trip we took last year. You know, in August, like, you know, COVID was still raging. I guess 2 summers ago now, and we found a tournament in Utah. You know, for Alpha, and it was like, okay, like we're all going to Utah, and it was kind of short notice, and their parents couldn't go, so they came with me, and it was just like, I guess, some late nights giggling in the hotel room and making fun of Aiden's stash in his suitcase, and you know, kind of brought them together, and I think it changed their relationship as far as like, hey, like we're here together now, and we're doing this now, and I think, you know, that they lean on each other in more ways than they express. You know, like if I come down on one of them, I think the other one understands what just happened, you know, or if one of them has a rough outing or goes to a huge stage and gets nervous, like the other one understands that dynamic. And so I think they're able to, even if they don't express it directly to each other, I think they're able to kind of have that other person that's going through the same thing that they can kind of lean on a little bit.
Yeah. So before I get into the last question, I want to ask you too, like, because you guys are starting to grow into this role, like, and Aiden talked about being a leader. You guys want to become those leaders. What is something that you would mention to a younger kid? And people ask this of athletes all the time, right? Like, what would you do to get better every day? But realistically, what would you tell a 12-year-old that came in here to KPI? Like, what do you do every day? Like, what makes you better every day? What would you tell that kid? We can start with AK this time.
I would say just stay focused on your goal the whole time. Just always crush your training, your lifting, throwing. Just always stay focused and don't slack off while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Don't get distracted by temporary things.
Mm.
Because those can just...
That's a good one. Dive into that.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
it'll be
good.
like,
Yeah, that was a good yeah.
like stuff like when you should be on your grind, but you're like, oh, it's like I want to do something fun tonight. Then after that night, oh, I want to recover today. You missed. Then boom, you already missed 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah, and it's like you can't do that once a month,
Yeah.
twice a month.
I want to jump in there because these two have to make incredible sacrifices.
Absolutely.
And like I think what they went through this summer with their schedule, like I was a sacrifice. I was hard, and we've talked about it, and there's a price to pay for the level they're at, and so it's doing your recovery day and telling your friends you'll be there in a half hour because you have something to do. It's waking up at 5:30 or 6 a.m. to get in here because that's the best time to lift. Like it's whatever it takes to get better, and it's the price of greatness is high.
Yeah. So I'll end it here. I have asked both of you a loaded question already. You guys have answered that. I'm going to ask you now the loaded question.
boy.
What does the future hold for Landon Stump and Aiden Keenan?
I mean, it's in their hands. They're in control of this process, and that's something we talk about a lot. So they're both capable of getting drafted high to high school if that's what they want. They're both capable of being weekend starters day one when they step on a Pac-12 campus. They are both going to get their degrees at some point in time, and the thought and the push is to get them in minor league baseball and hopefully the major leagues, and they're both very, very capable of that.
Absolutely. You guys got anything to say? No?
No.
Thank you very much. I mean, you guys heard it here first. Landon, Aiden, Eric, Dan, everybody on the show today. Thank you very much for watching. Please keep up on all our new content coming out on the KPI socials. Look out on our YouTube and Twitter for more info coming from our podcast. There will be a lot more info on other podcasts as well. Keep up with KPI Talking Points. This has been episode 12, and Aiden and Landon's story. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks. You just want to click that.
We've already made 12 episodes of podcast.
Yeah, just that little one. Just click that one.